Good morning, CLC. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this service. Special thank you to our musicians, Brian, Melody, Jeffrey, and Kenzie, that you'll see later on today. We appreciate them being here. We appreciate you being here. Happy Sunday. Welcome to service. Just a few announcements before we begin. I hope that everyone will be able to join us on Wednesday, June 23rd at 7 p.m. We will have a soul session on that day, sponsored by our Be the Change Committee. And this soul session is going to be with Thomas and Daniel. They are a long-time CSL members. They actually were a part of this center for quite some time when they lived in Houston. Now they live in Santa Fe. But they are a gay couple. They've been together for 46 years, and they will talk to us about the trials and tribulations and blessings and rewards that they have experienced and been through over the past 46 years, and the evolution of just the LGBTQIA community that they have gone through, as well as just how they've stayed in faith and with faith throughout all of their experiences. So this should be a wonderful conversation. I hope you guys can join us for that. In addition to that, of course, we have a number of things going on in our community, including the book studies that we have, including the new one that we have, Discovering the Power of You, that just started via Zoom with our practitioner, John Rennie. We also have spiritual support groups going on. We have online discussion groups going on. Lots of things happening each and every day. If you want and need to know about any of these things, you need to check your email. And hopefully you are getting your emails. If you're not, then you need to sign up for it in our Constant Contacts link. So you can actually go to info@creativelife.org and email Jesse and let him know. Or you can sign up in the link through our Constant Contacts. And with that, now comes giving time. Again, I want to thank you for your support. If it were not for you, we would not be able to be here and do this. So with that, I invite you to say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is. And now, in this moment, I invite you to relax. Take a few deep breaths, cleansing your body, cleansing your mind. Let all stress and tension just ooze out of you for right now. As you breathe in cool, calm air, breathe out all that no longer serves you. Let anything going on in life, let it just drift aside for now. And allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one and all is well. As we begin the inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your right hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by stating aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of the infinite presence, I simply speak these words, I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. In visualizing the idea as already acted upon and brought to pass, in seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words, I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude and say, I am grateful for the good in your life.
I hope at some point you out there in TV land get to see this and hear this. They will. You're good. Okay. Because I heard you swearing at the iPad a minute ago under your breath as I passed by. I understand completely. And I welcome you here to Creative Life. You know, I was thinking Danielle brings us the news every Sunday. I have to wait to get her attention because she'll want to hear this. I'm going to make funny. Danielle brings us the news every Sunday with the announcements, and Lisa, who's the runner, is the sports. So that leaves me the weather. And it's going to be 94 today, but tomorrow it's going to turn hot. Welcome to Southeast Texas Life on the Gulf Coast. Okay, what I have for you today, we're working in a series based somewhat on the book Walking on Water by Madeleine L'Engle, Reflections on Faith and Art. And last week I shared with you my thoughts on the distinction between spirituality and religion. Spirituality is the inward journey. Religion is conformity to tradition, to rules, and so on. It's story that's developed about the inward journey. Sometimes it's the story of one's own personal inward journey. Sometimes it's a story about a journey that somebody took a long time ago in history and it's been passed down to you, but the same story gets told. Religion is an interesting thing, a deep thing. It's done a lot of good in the world. It's also done some harm. Spirituality, I believe, has never done anyone any harm. Spirituality is working out your own process, figuring out your relationship to the divine, or your relationship actually in the divine. So, you may have heard, did we do this in the first take or in the second take too, of I Love Myself the Way I Am? There's a song we sing. That was, we don't know, sometime this morning it was sung. It's not on the thing, but you've heard it before. Yeah, I love myself the way I am. Reverend Dr. David Alt and his friends in the group Alliance back in the day at the Huntington Beach Church of Religious Science with Dr. Peggy Bassett, they wrote that song. Funny story about David Alt. He came to Creative Life to speak and do a concert. This was before he was a minister. We were still meeting upstairs. As he came in the room, before anyone else was there, I was sitting at the piano playing I Love Myself the Way I Am. He came over to me and he said, "That's nice, what is that?" I said, "It's a song you wrote." He's like, "Ow." Well, anyhow, I love myself the way I am, and still I choose to grow. This is important to understand, the distinction here. Why the emphasis on self? Why do we love ourselves? Why are we so complimentary of ourselves and of each other who are in this teaching, in New Thought? We go around and we affirm each other constantly. I'm affirming lots of people through the week. You're affirming lots of people through the week. We're not seeing them face to face quite as much yet, but virtually, there's all this affirmation. You have an idea, you have a plan, we tell you, you can do this. You've got what it takes because you are what it takes, and I believe in you, and there's all of this stuff going on, and we just revel in it, you know? We do that for two reasons. One is that if your desire is to experience the divine, you're going to experience it within. There's not anywhere else. If somebody else is experiencing it within, but you're not, then you're not having the experience of it. So you've got to step up to the plate, be willing to have the experience, and when you have the experience, it's going to be within. When Jesus said, "I and my Father are one," that was not an empirical statement. That was not a logical statement. That was not, well, say, you know, if the universe is one whole system, he didn't get to it the way we get to it sometimes when we talk about like 5 steps of treatment. He felt it. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way you feel. In order to show them the way you feel, you have to know the way you feel, right? You have to be in touch with the feeling. When you have the feeling of the presence of divinity in your life, you never lose that. No one can take that away from you. No one can argue you out of that. You have it. You're there. You got it. All right? So that's reason one, is to have the experience of the divine within. Not second-hand, third-hand, 12th hand, but to have it yourself, to have it, know it, and own it. The other reason is, once you do that, you care more about other people. Here's why. The reason it's difficult for us, I believe, to feel compassion or empathy for other people is that we're stuck in our own drama. We're still working out our own thing. I'd love to care about what's going on with you, but this is obsessing me right now. You know, I'm in anxiety about what is coming next in my life. I can't walk in your shoes. When I come back to my own, they may be gone. See? And so so if we don't do the work within, we don't really care about what's going on with other people as deeply as we might. I mean, we care, we might send a card or something, but there's not like a deep sense of, wow, what if this were really happening to me? And sometimes I think metaphysics kind of glides over this point, and it gives you the impression, and I mean Ernest Holmes even said this, don't look at what you don't wish to experience. He meant in your treatment work, in that little box of time, when you're saying there is one life, that life is source, that life is all the life there is, then don't look at what you don't wish to experience in that time. But really, if you're going to do treatment work at all about anything, at some point in time you must have looked at what you don't wish to experience, because that's what brought you to treat about it. Right? And so you're not feeling well, so you treat. Seem to have run out of money, so you treat. No friends around, so you treat. You've identified a condition, you've identified a situation. Holmes is saying, and I agree, don't take the recognition of the limitation of the situation. That's 3 shuns. Don't take that I just said into the heart of the treatment. When in the treatment, think about God. Think about peace, think about harmony, think about joy, prosperity, whatever might be the positive opposite, the attribute of spirit, the attribute of the limitless and infinite, that is the positive opposite of the condition that you seek to replace. But the rest of the time, don't treat all the time. The rest of the time, watch the world. Notice what's going on. If people fall in front of you, don't just step over them. Try to pick them up individually and collectively. You make a difference in this world. You make a difference in this world. You absolutely do. You have no idea. There's somebody, I read this is not original, but it's a nice thought. There's somebody out there, probably a lot of people out there, whose lives you touched a long time ago and you didn't even know it. And they feel better about themselves today because of you. You might have really extended yourself, done some great thing for them, or you might have just given them a break, You might have just not piled on when everybody else was heaping ridicule or, advice, which can be a form of ridicule. You're not smart enough to manage your own life, so here, And when people were doing all of that to them, you had a different take on things. And they remember that. Might not know your name or any of this, but there's a warmth that comes over them when they remember that moment. And then there are, of course, the people that you helped, and they remind you of this, and you have a deep bond, and it goes way back. And then there are the people that you're never going to meet, that exist all over the world, that you're doing something useful for. See, there's a difference between new thought, which is what I'm attempting to teach here today, and new age, which is not a bad thing or anything else, but there's a fundamental distinction that occurs to me, and you may argue with me, and that's cool, because it's great to churn these ideas out and see. And I'll illustrate it by a little story. This morning I was getting ready to get in the car to come here, and I walked through a big cobweb, big spider web, right? And I had to stop. This happens here. I had to stop what I was doing, and I had to pick stuff off my head, and I had to try to make sure I didn't have, so if I go into a twitch up here while I'm speaking, you'll know why. But I tried to make sure I didn't have, spiders on me. And then I thought about it some in the car on the way here. and the distinction between New Age and New Thought. New Age thinking tends to say, run to the animal spirit book and see what that spider and its web means to you, means to your life. What plans you have, what drama is afoot, or what the future holds for you, or something like this. New Thought says, think of what the spider's going through. It had a home. It put a lot of work in. And this big dummy of a human just walked right through it, you know? And, okay, it was an accident. I don't have to like do penance over that. But it's wise to see things from a different perspective. It's wise to see that we interact in a way that's not exclusively about us. Now here's the weird thing. When you do that, greater good comes to you than when you run to the animal spirit book and look up and see what the spider means. Because out of that book, you're going to get, as wonderful as they are, you're going to get one narrow interpretation based on somebody's understanding of something, and it's going to be complicated by tarot and astrology, and it's very interesting and all like that. But when you go into the organic spirit of the thing, you start thinking about how everything has a home, or should. And how can I facilitate people having, beings having, animals having, insects having appropriate lodging for themselves? How can I, because when I do that, what I'm doing is working in concert with the universal idea of I am. And the spider is some function of me. There is one life. That life is not just human. That life is not just earthly, you know. And so you begin to broaden your horizons. Now, this is especially true. You know, I don't know where this is going to lead me in terms of my future relationship with spiders, and I'm not, it's a little creepy to think that way, but anyway. But in terms of humans, this is vital, man. This is vital to understand what it would be like. What it would be like. You know, yesterday was Loving Day. Familiar with Loving Day? Loving v. Loving was a Supreme Court decision in June of 1967 that legalized interracial marriage in America. It was named after the two principals who brought the suit through the ACLU to the Supreme Court, who were Mr. and Mrs. Loving, who were in bed one night. They were married in '58, and shortly thereafter they moved to Virginia, and they were in bed one night, and the cops burst in, flashlights and everything. They said, you're violating state ordinance against inappropriate cohabitation. Mrs. Loving looked up and said, we're married. And she was told, not in this state, you're not. They were given an option. Prison or leave Virginia. So they left Virginia, and then they started talking to some lawyers, and the whole thing got moved along, and it brought it to a place where, because I think 1967, my God, I mean, I'd been on the planet for a while. This is not ancient history. And what happened was, Rehnquist, I think it was the Chief Justice at the time of the Supreme. They looked at this and said, two people love each other. What difference does it make what their racial identity is? Two people love each other. Somebody in power, somebody in authority, a number of white people with clout, put themselves in the shoes of this couple. How would you like it if somebody burst into your house and told you that you weren't married to the person that you're married to because of some insane law, you know? And this month being LGBTQ+, new numbers and letters keep being added to that, so I'll just say plus. Month, Pride Month, you know. Obergefell versus Hodges. Two people love each other. What difference does it make if they're the same gender, you know? Somebody put themselves in somebody else's, some straight person, bunch of straight people, I suppose, put themselves in the shoes of somebody who was unlike them and said, what if I was told I could? You know? And so this is how change happens, is people move outside their comfort zone of what they think is normal and appropriate and traditional. And traditional. We've always done it that way. It's never worked, but we've always done it that way. It's never been healthy, it's never been kind, it's never been loving, but we've always done it that way. And if we don't have that, then the whole system falls apart. Look at history. Whole systems fall apart, and it's a good thing. Out of the ashes of one civilization, something else rises up. Now, I think in this civilization that we're in, I have hope that we're not going to have to dismantle the whole thing, take it out. The people are learning and people are growing. I remain an optimist as to how things are going. But somebody has had to step outside of their comfort zone and say, okay, I'm willing to imagine what it's like to be somebody who is not me. I'm willing to imagine. Now you have to be a little careful with that, because you don't want to go so fully into over-imagining that you make up a whole reality for other people that is not in fact theirs. That entails listening to people. What is it like to be you? And hear that, and take that in. And so this is healthy. When you hear other people's stories, it's the voice of God speaking. I was reading in her book, she's telling, then I have a last story for you, but what are you laughing at? Every time I say I'm about finished or I have a laugh story, I'm bound to hear, okay, you know me really well. To write a story, she said, Madeleine L'Engle says, is an act of naming with a capital N. And there's a whole riff I could go into on that about renaming. It's a long-standing spiritual tradition in many faith systems that you take on a new name, like your baptismal name, for instance. In reading about a protagonist I grow along with, I myself am more named. So when she's reading a story about somebody on a journey, on a quest, you know, she's developing a greater understanding of her life. And we live in a world which would reduce us to our social security numbers, area codes, zip codes, credit card numbers. These all take precedence over our names. Our signatures already mean so little that it wouldn't be a surprise if by the year 2000, we, like prisoners, are known only by our numbers. She's writing this 1980. It's one of her last books. But that is not how it was meant to be. Coleridge writes, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, you know, the Romantic poet. His best friend for a long, well, his best friend was Wordsworth, and then they had a falling out, but his best friend for a long time was Hyman Hurwitz, who was a Jewish scholar, and this is in the late 18th century in London. And they actually collaborated on some work together, like when Princess Charlotte passed in childbirth. They wrote an elegy for her. Hurwitz wrote it in Hebrew. Coleridge translated it into English. So Coleridge, when he's writing what I'm about to read you, is not just throwing this out there as an idea. He has some deep background for it. Coleridge said the Jews would not willingly tread upon the smallest piece of paper in their way, but took it up, for possibly, said they, the name of God may be upon it. Though there was a little superstition in this, yet truly there is nothing but good religion in it if we apply it to man. Trample not on any. There may be some good work of grace there that thou knowest not of. The name of God may be written upon that soul thou treadest on. The name of God is written on everything. The stuff we throw away, the stuff we value, the people we don't look at, we don't recognize, that we marginalize, the people that we value, that we put on pedestals, that we cherish. The name of God is written equally abroad, across all people. Spiritual healing is not about so much finessing what happens out here in the world. It's about recognizing that within, healing the prejudices that we have, and everybody has them. Even if they're kindly, they're prejudices. Why, you poor thing, how miserable it must be to be you. You know, that's a prejudice. It sounds right? On the one hand, it's like, oh, what a kind thing to think. No, no, not so much. It's a wounding. It's a codependent kind of thing. It's like I said earlier, you're incapable of managing your own life, so here, give it to me. You know, that, right? At first, it's like maybe to you that's, oh, good, I'm, relieved of that burden. And then suddenly it's like I have no agency at all in my life. So again, it's tempered. It's tempered. It's tempered. I have a role model for you. Passed away this week. They do. I memorialize people, their stories. Sometimes I don't know their stories till they're gone. This woman's story I knew. In fact, I gave a talk about her. It's got to be 32 years ago. She showed up in the talk. I got to find my notes, or I'm going to have to sit through listen to a bunch of decaying cassette tapes to find where I said something about her. Her name was Ganga Stone. You may have heard about her. Ganga Stone was a hospice worker in New York City, and in 1985 there was this thing ravaging the city called AIDS. And she had a client, she had a number of clients, various states of illness. She had one in particular named Richard, and she went to visit him. He was a young man, he's an actor, fallen ill. Had a strange outbreak of sarcoma on his skin. He was developing symptoms of pleurisy, pneumonia, Nobody really knew why. The first AIDS diagnosis, I think, was in the winter of 81, 82. So the transmission or exactly what was going on was unclear. Anyhow, at some point in 85, she goes to see this man, her client, and she takes him some groceries and hands them to him. And he, in despair, just throws the groceries on the floor. And then out of the grocery bag, there comes a container, box of cake mix. And he picks it up and he throws it across the room. And she's like, what's the matter? He says, I can't prepare this. I'm too weak. I can't stand in the kitchen. She's got an idea. So what you need is meals prepared for you. What you need is meals prepared for you. And not just general meals, not just a parade of casseroles, but something that is nutritionally tailored to your situation. Tailored to whatever the condition might be that somebody has. And so she started bringing him meals. And then told a friend of hers about it, and they started bringing other people meals. And one day they ran into a local minister out on the street. He said, where are you going with the meals? And they told him. And he said, you're delivering God's love. Now they had a name. God's love we deliver. Ganga Stone passed this week, the age of, I think, 79. Last year, God's Love We Deliver in the greater New York, New Jersey area delivered 2.3 million meals using 20,000 volunteers. HIV/AIDS has receded. COVID-19 has advanced. And in between, you have cancer and heart disease and all of the other needs that anybody might have of any age to do this kind of thing. To have this sort of setback, to have this sort of disability that was met. That's the difference that can be made, and it starts in this really small way. And I had just found out about her when I told the story 30-something years ago, at which point we had an HIV/AIDS care team here at Creative Life, and it was really current news. And the point of this is, maybe you say, well, I don't know, if I could take on all of that kind of thing. 20,000 volunteers. For a while now, she hasn't been one of them. Things take on a life of their own. We won't always be in the driver's seat in the ideas that we bring into the world. But if it's an idea whose time has come, if it's an idea that's consistent with divine authenticity, openness, wholeness, if it's healed, if it's whole, if it's holy, it will pick up and go. And sometimes we just have to stand back out of the way and let the thing go and take, and not micromanage exactly how every step of it's going to take. There are great things in store for each of us in terms of healing this world. But again, to circle back to the opening point, you know, the name of God is upon everything you touch. It starts with the self. Work on the self in your spiritual time, in your what we call spiritual mind treatment work. And if you want to know what that, you're going to hear Reverend Lisa do a treatment here momentarily. She looked at me just now like she didn't know that was coming, but she did. And it's prayer. It's prayer. It's not a pleading, supplicating kind of prayer. It's a prayer of claiming and affirming, and, well, you know. And if you don't, keep listening. We'll come back to that in the weeks to come. In that time, when you're doing that prayer, focus on the goal. Keep the end in mind of what it is you wish to create, as though you had already created it and could step immediately into that reality and pull it close around you. And then when you come out of that treatment, survey the landscape. Look at the world. How is the world working? How is the world working? And what can I do? And what difference can I make? What can I stop doing? That's a good thing to look at too. What can I stop doing that I've been doing that involves, expectations and limitations and pigeonholing of people and situations? What can I dial back on? And what can I increase in terms of my love for the world? Situations will occur, present themselves to you, and greater good will follow for you personally. That's the weird upshot of all of this. It's not just selfless giving. Something will come in, give you what you need. So, I love you guys. Hey, you know what? Let me say this before I sit down. This is not part of the talk, so the talk officially ended. You can discuss amongst yourselves. On July the 11th, we're excited. We're going to have real live congregation here in the room. 11 yay! 17 months, 16 months? 16 months, something like that it's been. We're going to do some things differently leading up to that and thereafter. On the next Sunday, you'll have me doing this. Then on the last Sunday of the month, Reverend David Dewhurst is going to speak. On the Sunday after that, the 4th of July, we're going to give you a special blast from the past. Let's just call it that. A service recorded from the past, and we are going to take the Sunday off. We've all had a Sunday here and there over the last 16 months, but we've not all had one Sunday off. And so on the 4th of July, we're going to listen to Lord's new song and take her advice and go to the beach. Or wherever it is we want to go. Not all together, but whatever it is. I mean, we could, I guess. But anyway, And then on the 11th, one service only, 11 a.m., going forward, at least for the time being. And we look forward to seeing you here. Just ask that you hug appropriately. Ask people before you touch them. People are coming out now of their homes and out into the world, and they don't necessarily want you all over them. So, nor do you want them all over you. So, ask. Be, respectful of this. And we'll have some more suggestions going forward about how all to be together. But I look forward to seeing you, those of you who are here in town, those of you who are not. Despite today's technical glitches, we're going to continue to record, present on Facebook and YouTube forever. So those of you watching, I know there's one person or two in Seattle. There's somebody else I know in Rochester, New York, who are watching today, or will when we get this thing up, and you'll still be able to be with us. So anyway, looking forward to that going forward. Have a wonderful week.
You probably heard the musicians get excited about having you guys back in the room. And it's not that we're not excited, those of us who are not musicians. It's not that we're not excited, but I want you to know that musicians are paid in applause. And it's been a really quiet 16 months for them. But they have done their jobs beautifully and just as hard as if you guys were in the room, because in a way you are. In a way you are. But we are looking forward to having you back physically in the room with us, not just spiritually. So, and he called me out because I was on my phone looking up articles for Ganga Stone that he mentioned, and then I heard my name. And so, of course, I looked up and looked guilty and like I didn't know what was going on. And the truth is, I never know what's going on. I just trust that what is going on and my role in it is going to be good, because I trust the divine. I trust God. I trust Spirit. I trust that the words that come out of my mouth when I am asked to do this are the words that somebody needs to hear, even if the only somebody that needs to hear it is me, because that happens. Because I was reading Ernest Holmes and Raymond Charles Barker today, and that's what they were talking about. They were talking about the middle way. It's not just about, it's finding a balance between selfish and selfless. Because absolutely we do want, and we do need, and we do desire. But the way to get what we want and need and desire is to want that for everyone else too. No one's left out. That's the middle way. I can't give everything away, and I can't hold everything. So I've got to walk the middle path between that. And when I do that, I get more than I dreamed that I could have had in the first place. So that is what I'm going to know for you today, is the middle way. Because I know that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. And as I know that one presence, and I do know that one presence, I have met that one presence, I have felt that one love, I know for you that presence. I know the presence, the power, the love, the guiding principle. And I speak my word now for each one of you watching, for every sentient being in this universe. Because you're made of that one love. You're made of that one power. God's name truly is written on you. You will never look in the eyes of someone that God does not love. And so I know that that love is flowing through me. I know that that love is flowing through you. And as it flows through you, you feel it. As a light, gentle breeze flowing through, touching places that you didn't know you had, awakening feelings, awakening gifts, awakening talents, all through love. I know this. I know this presence. You know this. You know this presence. You hear that soft voice whispering to you, guiding you, loving you, cheering you on, calling you the beloved child, so that we know who we are. Always. Always. And I'm grateful to know this. I'm grateful to be this. And I'm grateful to know you as this. Just as I'm grateful for this place, these people, and this knowing. And I relax, release, and know that it is so, even as I speak these words. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my
I
mind.
feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use it.
And I love it.
And I love it.
And so it is.
So it is.
All right.